Awesome. So let me share my screen again. All right. So WordPress news and events since we last met. Well, this one's not all that exciting. It's a point release. 6.9.1 got released February 3rd, so a little bit after we last met. Again, your hosting provider may have already automatically updated this for you. So it's primarily bug fixes. They're always kind of putting up bug fixes into core and block editor. One issue, though, I think that came up in 6.9. It didn't affect me, but I did definitely see it mentioned, maybe online, maybe it was Reddit or someplace, was that people were having some people were having an email issue. So if you're using sort of the core PHP mailer, kind of the default um, mailer that WordPress uses for sending emails, some people on some, again, it's a lot of some people on some hosts were having issues with those. I'm not sure if it was emails not being sent at all or just being lost or errors. So apparently that's been fixed. There's been a fix to that. I guess there's some regression kind of issue. So that's been fixed in 6.9.1. And there's a full list of fixes available online. If you just go to WordPress.org, search for 6.9.1, you'll see the list of what's in there. So anyway, that's 6.9 point. I've updated, all my sites have updated as far as I can tell. I haven't seen any issues on it. So hopefully a good quiet point release. One of the other topics that we want to spend a little bit of time, we don't want to belabor this too much, but one of the things that came up in um, WordPress 2026, I don't know exactly where specifically it came up, but this was something I noticed, at least in the make.wordpress.org blog. If you're not familiar with it, again, this is under wordpress.org, under news. I think that's how I stumbled upon this. But one of the WordPress .org/community goals that they seem to have for 2026 is a focus on meetups, which that's what this is. we are a meetup. But there's a couple interesting points here. So again, Peter and I have been doing this for 8 years for the Hartford WordPress, and many of you have attended this and other meetups. So it's just kind of interesting. We thought we'd spend a few minutes talking about it because we are, like I said, we are a community. So one of the goals they're trying to do, WordPress overall, is they're trying to address. They're adding issue-focused sessions where attendees can work together on real WordPress problems. These are some suggestions. I'll go through these and we'll talk about them in a little bit. They want to expand in meetups, hands-on learning opportunities tied to actual WordPress needs. They want to provide a path, I guess, clear next steps that move people from meetup participation into contribution on the actual make teams. So if you're not familiar, the make teams are the ones that actually contribute to WordPress core, the code base, because WordPress is an open source project. And they encourage using meetups to explore new topics together. AI is the big buzzword, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess we want to talk about this a little bit, Peter and myself. I don't put words in Peter's mouth with you guys, because many of you are loyal attendees of this meetup. But if you've attended other meetups as well, we're always kind of toying with our format a bit. We've evolved over the years. So just kind of give you a peek behind the curtain. Especially if you're new, like I said, we've been doing the Hartford WordPress group, Peter and myself, since 2018, and it started as an in-person meetup in Connecticut, because that's obviously Hartford. We're in Connecticut. We'd go to a library, we'd meet in person, we'd have a projector, all that kind of stuff. That was in 2018. A lot changed in those 8 years, including Zoom, the ability to do things online. So especially during COVID, we really pivoted to online only. And then, to be honest, since COVID ended, we've continued to be online only. And we talked about that amongst ourselves that, once things got safe enough to meet in person, do we want to go back to in person? And I don't know if we talked about this with the rest of you guys, but Peter and I kind of made a decision. No, we want to stay online only for many reasons, but besides just being lazy and having to drive someplace and all that kind of stuff. But I think we found a good niche here in terms of people like Gene and Sue and it's the Eagle and other folks who found us one way or another, and we've sort of expanded beyond our little corner of Connecticut. I know we still have folks like Bob and others from Connecticut, which is great. So we're obviously not abandoning our Connecticut folks, but for many reasons, we found it's easier to do these things online, including sharing our screens and looking at code. It's just easier here on Zoom than sitting in a room someplace, and then logistics, et cetera, et cetera. So as much as WordPress itself and they started this, I think 2 years ago or something similar, wasn't it, Peter? About like, I think it was post-COVID, a push to get back in person and push for that.
Yeah.
Personally, we're not, at least I'm going to speak for Peter, but I don't see a real benefit to us switching back to in person. But maybe some of these ideas too about, issue focused sessions, the hands-on learning, that kind of stuff makes a bit of sense to me. But I'm curious for others too, who, and I'll show Peter, you definitely tend more word meetups, and Eagle and others who do as well. Are you seeing any other meetup groups kind of pivot to this or kind of evolve to this? And is this something we should look at? So
Yeah.
I'll shut up for.
And let me add to that because I've been following this and will continue to follow it. It's an area of great interest to me, and especially when I see, you know, Eagle, who is also an organizer, and a lot of the folks, Gene, Gerald, Robert, they go to multiple meetups and see what each one is, and there's in the U.S. and what I've also been noticing is part of it is when WordPress, the organization, is talking about a lot of things. They're talking about a global organization. The U.S. is us, and like I attend a lot of meetups. A lot of where this has come from is some of the efforts to get younger people involved, which I think is extremely important. Things tied into the education. There's a new education.wordpress.org area that having credit systems and all, and they're looking for a way. And again, the define they at this point, because even that's questionable. I think it's worthy of discussion. Like there are folks making decisions. So the top two in WordPress. So Matt Mullenweg was the founder and chief everything at this point, and Mary Hubbard, who is his basically second for WordPress, have both recently mentioned things. Matt called he's dubbed 2026 the year of the meetups, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And Mary Hubbard was talking about on her last and kind of really only kind of big public thing was talking about the focus on meetups. But then you read what they want to do, and I have to wonder, and Eagle and Ray and those who participate, who are they talking about that is going to be doing the things that they want to have happen, especially this active path to being a contributor. I'm not here to, I can absolutely share with people what being a contributor is about and how to do it. But I think most of the meetups are helping people with troubleshooting, problem solving, learning. Where do I start? How do I do this? How do I do that? So it's kind of a disconnect between this grand scheme of how we're going to move people from meetups to being a contributor to, hey man, we're a bunch of people running our own meetups. And Ray, you and I were talking about this. Yeah. We haven't heard from the meetup team for a year directly. So the newsletters or the announcements we've gotten. So all of a sudden it's like not only we're hearing, but we're hearing quite honestly, out of the blue, that 2026 is the year of meetup. So I'd be really fascinated to see if what people in the real world, what do the people who attend meetups actually want?
And that's where, again, not to belabor this, I don't want to turn this into like a, rehashing of drama in the WordPress community. Pardon me again, the cynic in me, the New Englander in me says some of this is also just, their reaction, their strange reaction to a self-created problem of the past year or two of like, hey, guess what? A bunch of people dropped out of contributing to WordPress, because of some drama from the upper, reaches of WordPress. Now they're like, let's reach down into the meetup groups and see if they can help do this. So whatever. Yeah. So I will say it again. Let's just kind of wrap this up. But I want to throw this in front of the group, mainly more for just like we talked about earlier. We kicked this off about looking for topics and things that you guys are interested in, and especially the regulars and others. Why you keep coming back to us. If you've been with us long enough, you'll notice we have pivoted our format a bit beyond the in-person. We've gone away from the long in-person presentations because part of it was like, to be honest, we're not, I would say I'm not really speaking for myself again. I'm not selling myself as a WordPress expert in anything. I'm just a guy who's been using it for a long time, and Peter probably longer than myself. So we're sharing our knowledge, but I never felt like we were trying to pretend we're instructional teachers. So the presentation piece of it, and it takes a lot of time, back to the free
Yeah.
labor. So we've abandoned that, quite frankly. And I think we've tried to balance between sometimes wide open forums where we just talk about anything. And those are struggles because we don't always get enough questions. I know Eagle and others who run more help desk type things get a lot more participation. And I don't think that's what people come here. So I do think what we're trying to figure out as we move forward, and we'd love to hear your feedback, in the chat tonight or reach out to us afterwards is, what are you looking for? What kind of things do you like about what we do, what we can change, et cetera, thing. Maybe you missed some stuff in the past. So we're trying to strike, I think, that balance between having enough focus on our meetup so it's not just like, hey, let's all hang out tonight and talk WordPress. That's like tonight's thing, which I promise we'll get started in a minute or two. Tonight's topic is like we're talking about menus, but we're not doing any slides. A lot of it's just gonna be hands-on. We'll see where the conversation goes, and then that's it. So we're gonna do some meetups like that around a topic. Then we're gonna do some, I think, around like what we did last month, which was bring something that you've worked on. I work on client websites. Peter works on client websites. Many of you do as well. If you're working on something that's interesting, whether it's a problem you have or something that you've fixed and solved, bring that. We want to have sessions like that too. We call those like the real world WordPress problems because they don't fit into a full hour-long presentation, but they're interesting, I think, at least to me they are. So that's kind of our format these days. At least this year, I think we're trying to evolve to that a bit. The rest of the stuff that they're talking about of contributing to make teams, yeah, it's not going to be happening here. So anyway.
Yeah, and I'm curious, is there anybody who was on the call who is like, boy, I really want to contribute to WordPress at the developer, supporting developer, documentation team, training team. There's all these teams. Are people wanting to come to meetups for that kind of information?
I don't see any hands raised. Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that too about the evolved format. Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think there's nothing wrong with that. And if there is, I'm saying there are other meetups for that as well. Gene, go ahead. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Oh no, I used to go to the training things and learning how to do training, to contribute. And I was on accessibility for a little bit, and there was another one that I was on. And the people that I went to these groups for because I like them, they seem to have all disappeared. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I mainly went to you because I liked you and I felt encouraged by you. And so when four or five of the people that I dealt with for 2 years have all of a sudden disappeared, I'm just sort of like, well, if you fired them, why should I be taking up their job? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyway, my
So
thought.
no, I appreciate that. And again, so like I said, I think this is going to be an ongoing thing. So if you hear more of this, one other big potential change, and I don't know when this is ever going to happen, they've talked about this before, is them actually moving off of the meetup.com platform to some other platform. That I wouldn't mind, to be honest, as long as people can still find us. So
Yeah, there's actually a WordPress based tool called GatherPress
yeah, I heard about
that they're looking to do. As far as people who have left and changed, and I do think that the events, the drama, whatever you want to call it, has had some impact. I also think there's been a certain kind of fatigue. I think a lot to do with, and again, I'd be curious. And today is a great example of the challenge that I had looking at a simple topic, but that is so complicated because of where WordPress is right now. The classic version, the full site editing, things like that. I, I've been looking at the training materials I looked today, and it's like, oh man, they haven't updated anything in a year.
yeah.
So Learn as a major resource. So there's a lot of things to get the house in order here that I think are important. I think it is falling a lot of times on the meetups, and I want to keep the personal thing because I think we are the let me, let me help you. To help the Eagles help desk, right? So there's a couple others in California where people are like, let's solve your problem kind of thing. And sometimes I'm amazed with those groups when time gets spent on something and everybody stays on the call, and a lot of people contribute to those conversations. So that is certainly different than this idea that we're going to follow some kind of handed down curriculum because it's like, oh, we're going to get you more resources and more material.
Right. We're not back to our thing being, we're not a sales promotion.
Yeah.
We're not a job training place. So
yeah, it's like we're people who use this, who like it, want to teach other people. We happen to be people who like to teach. So
with that, again, I think this is more for raising awareness for folks, and we definitely want to hear from you anytime. I would say this too, as we're evolving our meetups and all that, we definitely would love to hear your feedback and what kind of things you want us to continue to do or change, etc. So,
and I actually think Eagle's on mic now. Eagle, any opinion? I mean, as an organizer?
Yeah, I haven't been impressed with the meet in person hybrid meetups where people are trying to do both. It tends to be a disappointing experience to be online listening from a distance, if you will, because they're not up front, and they're the last one I was at was a valiant attempt, but it was so problematic with the sharing of slides and finding slides and organizing the laptops and speakers being 10 feet away from microphones and stuff. It was very discouraging. So I have been disinclined to go down that route. The other thing is that the Santa Cruz, San Jose meetup, there's nobody in my town. Well, I take that back. There's two people in my area that would be possible attendees at a in-person meetup. But even when I was pre-COVID meetups, we'd get 8, 10, 12 would be a big meetup, and often it would be 2 or 3 people who would show up. It just,
Yeah.
The excitement's not there, and the number of developers in a certain area. I mean, if you're in LA, yeah, I can see it. If you're in San Francisco, they have big meetups, but in where I'm at, all my attendees are online. Portland, Seattle, Idaho, Dallas. You show up, Peter. We get a number of East Coast people, and so I'm not inclined to go to any other format because people know they can come and get help. And you're right. Sometimes, the hour expires and somebody inevitably will ask a question just as we are about to end, and we'll go another hour. It happens a lot. And if there's nobody asking for help, it's a community of people that have been talking to each other for 5 years. So we have no problem talking to each other about anything. I mean, seriously, anything. WordPress particular.
Yeah.
But I will say that my experience like Gene, I tried to participate back in the day, signing up for Slack, being on the Make channel, working with stuff, getting into GitHub and making suggestions, and basically being faced with the fact that I didn't totally agree with people. And if you don't totally agree with people in their community, you're ostracized or just literally kind of abused rather than being responsive to your suggestions or corrections. It's like, why the hell would you want to do that? I mean, that's a comment I got. It's like, and that was pretty much my last straw. But it's like, I don't think if you're going the direction they want you to go, they want you in there. And there are key people who you don't get access to. There are key people who make decisions and just ignore what they don't want to see. And, so I don't even go that way anymore.
Right. Open source, it's open as long as you're within their,
Yeah.
benevolent dictator thing. So
Yeah.
Well,
anyway,
it's
let's
open source. It's open source, but it's controlled by Matt Mullenweg and his
right,
team.
right.
And
Yeah.
so it's the open source part is the contributors outside of
Right.
automatics. You know, the the generate presses, the bricks,
Yeah. Sure.
the cadence. Uh, you know, uh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but full site editing is still not the solution for me.
Right. Exactly.
Uh, and I know everybody wants to ballyhoo it and say that's the cream of the crop, but the numbers of installs of Astro, Generate Press, uh, Cadence, tell me otherwise. And
That's why it's even
the
tonight.
things the things that a few developers can accomplish, like Generate Press, like a few other things that they can accomplish in short amount of times, just
Yep.
it amazes me that we still have to deal with the block editor in the format that it's in after 10 years because somebody wants that to be that way and not improve. So yeah, I don't get it. I don't get excited about involving with that crowd. So I just help people where I can, uh, help them
So
fix their issues and problems.
Thanks.
I'll tell you this, and then we'll keep going. But I'm I'm definitely following up on certain things, and I would love to see a conversation that the and it's going to be interesting. Again, I think there is um, North America, UK versus like India and Asia have different ways of doing things within the WordPress organization. But I think that we need to take this opportunity, and this will be a bigger thing we'll talk about later, to then say, okay, you're saying it's the year of the meetup. We got something to say about that, So that'll be interesting, and I'm kind of getting the pieces around, doing my research and all, and I know key people who at least we could talk to and say, okay, how do we get heard versus having stuff kind of handed down in an attempt that's gonna, quite honestly, and not to be, it's just not going to work the way they've kind of said, we're going to give you material so you can get people to be contributors.
Right.
Great. We put our own stuff together based on the fact that people need to know things like, how does a menu work?
Right. Let's see some GitHub now. Well, I like it. I appreciate everyone's feedback. Definitely let us know too. Like I said, as we continue to evolve and we hear more about this. So maybe just again, for the sake of time, Peter, is it okay? Let's skip our tool or plugin spotlight. If that's all right, because I think we'll be talking
All right,
about.
but I'll tell you what it is real quick.
Sure. Yeah.
So, because I'm using local today, which I hadn't been,
Okay.
and I use Migrate Guru to zip it up, and I didn't know that, because I was trying to, what's the best way to get it in? I get the data in to make a copy of a site. Use Migrate Guru, drag and drop it onto local.
Oh, that's nice.
You literally drag the file on. It just has to be in the right format. And not Migrate Guru, WP Migrate Lite.
Okay.
You can do it with Migrate Guru, I think, but WP Migrate Lite exports the site using, the structure of what your site is, basically, if you used FTP. And you could take that zipped up file, drag it and drop it, and build the site. So I thought that was really cool.
Very neat. All right, well, let's jump into our main topic, which is all about menus. So again, we're not doing slides, but I did want to just throw together some notes, at least for myself, to kind of guide the conversation a little bit. So sorry, let me close up some of my windows here. So I'm gonna have my demo site, obviously, and then somewhere, sorry, the Zoom window is blocking me.
Well, while you're doing that, Ray, it's interesting, this particular topic, because it's like one of those things that people who used to using menus, it's like, why are you even bothering? The flip side is you hear a lot about new users, or even agencies who now need to communicate to, like, who they're handing a website off, how menus work. And apparently it gets confusing very quickly, which it's like one of those things where when you're used to it, it's so easy.
Yeah.
If you're not used to it, it's so confusing.
Well, and that's a good kickoff to one thing that is confusing. And sometimes I think we'll unfortunately we may confuse things a little bit, is the distinction between a header versus a menu, because sometimes the terms are used interchangeably. So again, if we're, oh, my site's completely blank. I'll look at some sites in a second, but that the header section, and we actually did a meetup a couple of years ago now, talk about the headers and what headers and footers and all those kind of things. So they are related. To be more precise, a menu is a navigation menu, but at times I think we're going to talk about, we may flip back and forth when we're talking about headers versus menus, because there is a relationship between them. It's not that you can't put a navigation menu anywhere besides a header. In fact, we'll talk about that a little bit too. But in general, that's the place people tend to think about them. So that's just one thing to talk about a little bit from a context standpoint. Headers versus menus, because there are other things, and maybe this is just, again, just one example. There's other things you can put in a header besides a navigation menu. This is a random restaurant, fancy restaurant I found in Connecticut, because we have fancy restaurants in Connecticut. But if you look at this site, which is a pretty looking site, they have other things in their header, such as, street address. They have, click to Google Maps directions, contact us, phone numbers, booking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Some places have reservations up there, anything else, you get logos, that kind of stuff. That's information that's in a header. Some of that information may also reside in a menu. So I think one of the things too that's a consideration, we always talk about these things about, before you dive into building anything, even if it's something as simple as a menu, you may want to step back a little bit and look at, should this be in the navigation menu or should it be in the header? And we'll probably have some examples tonight as we talk about building different sample menus. So like a contact button, for example, or contact us. Maybe that's a link to a page, but maybe it's better suited as a button in a header. Other things like that. So anyway, so some considerations of, should it be in a navigation menu versus should it be in a header? One other thing I want to talk about a little bit too is around, again, before we dive into stuff, best practices around navigation. So the idea of, you want your navigation to be simple, you want your navigation to be clear for the user, for any visitor. So there's kind of some rules of thumb. I'd be, curious if others agree, disagree, have heard something similar. But in general, even for me, I tend to think about like 5 to 7 items in a navigation menu. Once you start getting beyond that, things get a little bit crazy and confusing. Yeah, I will shame some of my clients, but and some of that happens over time. Like someone says, "Hey, I want to add this to the menu. I want to add this. I want to add this." Next thing you know, you have a menu of like a dozen things, or word wraps. It just doesn't look good, and it's confusing for people to navigate. I'll jump these other ones. I'll kind of talk about a little bit later, maybe as we're diving into stuff. But I also want to just briefly, one thing too is, we talk about this when we talk about designing a site. Whatever industry you're in, whether it's a nonprofit, a business, restaurant, whatever, personal website, you always want to kind of at least peek at what other people are doing in that field. Just get an idea of like, how did they design their menus, just from a design standpoint. So that's a good way to kind of figure out, maybe you're missing something. Oh, I didn't think about having a contact us or about us page or link in my menu. You want to like look at what others are doing. But just in terms of organizing your menu, I'd say it's like 2 examples. One's just Newington, this is the town that I live in, and this is the better website. They've changed this. Some years ago, some IT firm came in, did the town website. Everyone hated it. Huge complaints. Nobody could find anything. And then last year, the year before, they announced another company came in. They redesigned everything. It's so much better now. It's so much cleaner. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 up here. There's links. There's a search. I mean, some of this looks okay by itself, but then you start like, do I go here?
Yeah.
Do I go to the buttons? Wait, so think about, this again. It's still confusing. In some ways, they just slapped it looks nicer, much, much nicer than what the old one was. But to me, this is seriously confusing. Like, where do I even go? And again, this is not a menu thing. This is just a navigation thing to consider. I'll just show 2 quick examples, and we'll start talking in the details of WordPress, or I'll shut up and let Peter talk. But just 2 other quick ones that I found this. I was building a historical society website. But this is another example of thinking slightly differently about your header slash menu. So this is the Enfield Historical Society. It's probably gonna take a minute or two for it to load up. And then while that one's coming up, just the Connecticut Humane Society. So I do the other pet shelter. So this one's pretty nice and clean. You think about, what do people come here for? Who are you? I need help. I want to donate. And everything else is sort of adopt. It's a really nice. They've called out the main things, and then if you want more information, we'll talk about like mega menus. I think tonight too. So they have them as little sub menus, just much cleaner. Like this. This is like a less intimidating first thing to see than this. This is kind of crazy. And then the Enfield one just shows again, if you have a nonprofit, what do you want people to do? You want them to join, they're interested in events, you want them to donate. Make those the three call out things. Those are your highest priority. Then everything else here. If you want to get to it, you can get to it here. And anyway, so those are just, I think, examples. I'll show Peter. I don't know if you have any thoughts about just sort of.
Yeah, give me just 1
Yeah,
second.
go ahead. So, but it's something to look at. Like I said, before you start organizing things, take a look at other, before you start building things. I mean, take a look at other organizations that are similar to yours and see ones that you like, ones that are professional looking, and see why do they do things a certain way?
Yeah.
Again, not everything has to be crammed into just like one menu, which then gets very confusing.
That's right, and I'm glad you brought this up because I see a lot of menu abuse out there, and a lot of times when I'm doing things, I like it simple, right? But sometimes, and we can talk about mega menus and things, what that means and how that can both make things better and, again, if used incorrectly, worse. Sometimes simple links, click on a page, then have your sub menu work from that page, for example. Now you're in a category. So it's thinking about what that experience is for everybody. We'll also talk a little bit about even things like accessibility. We can show at some point, just in terms of the usability of a menu. It's really interesting, and yet another conversation today is the difference between what happens in a classic theme versus what happens in a block theme. Could be a very different experience. And so depending on what theme you're using, what was really interesting with the block themes is how much it backtracked to an oversimplified navigation block on how navigation works, and then what has since been done both in core to make that a little better, but again, what third parties are doing and plugins and what they're doing going forward and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely, it's this topic where we're all using it, and there's a lot of ways of looking at it. So the nice thing is there's so much flexibility that deciding what is the right thing to do can then pretty much be done. Very often it's hard. You just kind of like, oh, every page will have a link on my menu. That would be probably, it's not something you want to do unless you have 5 pages, for example.
Right.
So there you go.
Cool. So just again, it always starts with context before you jump in. And we'll jump in a second to like creating stuff. But like I said, these are just some notes I put, so even little things too about saving some space. So there's this whole thing about, do you need a home item on your menu, or is the logo? Many people now are accustomed to, I want to get back, I'm down here on a lower page, a sub page. I want to go back home. Oh, the logo is always in my header. So I just click on that. So you save yourself space. You don't need to put home as a menu item. So again, little things that maybe are obvious, but just space saving. So again, prioritizing order, organizing content. That's another thing too around what makes logical sense. I'm working on this site. I keep hopefully be done with it next month. But there's things that sometimes it's not cut and dry. I'm like, I'm rebuilding a site, and there's some pages that I'm like, should this be under the About Us section, or should it be under a resources link? So, you tend to like, where would people tend to think about this? So I'm sort of making up some rules of thumb that if it's like, if the page is specifically about the organization, it should be about us. If it's about something that they do, but it's really a process that should be somewhere else under resources. So it's not cut and dried. I mean, you may need to move it back and forth depending on who you speak to, but that's another piece before you start building. It's like just think about organizing these things in kind of a tree or whatever. So let's jump in. And I know Peter and I we don't practice. So
Yeah.
there'll be no
No,
practice. So
you've got everything covered. So
so
I'm happy to watch what you're doing, and I'll jump in with any comments.
yeah, so we'll go back and forth. So I'm going to start with some
Sure.
simple stuff. I'm going to grab the low-hanging fruit, and then Peter can jump in with the cooler stuff afterwards. So let's start the really, really basics of. So I've got this site, my much abused demo site, which has a ton of themes, a bunch of junk in it anyway. But right now, by default, there is no menu. So again, if you're working on this, if you just install WordPress brand new, um, and again, it all depends on your theme. We'll talk about themes in a second too, but by default, you're not going to get a menu built for you. You've got to build one to begin with. So, menus under, if you're not using a full site editor theme, where you find the menus are underneath appearance menus. And in this case, as you can see, there's no menu created. So I'm just going to call it primary menu. You can call it whatever you want. Main menu, I've seen, primary menu, etc. And first thing you need to do is you need to create the menu. And now you start adding stuff to it. So if you have a brand new site, one thing you can do is you're creating the site and adding pages. I don't know if every theme does this necessarily, but it may start to add those pages as top level menu links for you. So you want to kind of quickly take control and think of some structure. In fact, I would say for me and about others, I actually tend to build, when I'm building a brand new site, I always start with the home page because to me that sets the context or for everything else in the site. And I tend to start top to bottom. I tend to start with the header first, and I will stub out a menu to begin with because I kind of know what structure I'm going to build for the site. So I will typically, so let's say I start this brand new, I would say, and I'll show you some custom links in a second, but I can say I'm going to have an about us page. Um, this is the trick I'll show you in a second. So I'm going to have an about us page. I'm going to have a contact us page. Oh, sorry. I'll just do two. I have a contact us page, et cetera, et cetera. And then this is really the way I build. I mean, everyone does things differently, but I would start off spiking out these before I've even built the pages. Why do I do that? It's because I want to start to see stuff here. I want to start to see. Oh, I didn't assign it yet. I want to see like what this thing is looking like. So anyway, and again, I want to make this in this case. So maybe this is the first divergence. So your theme plays a big part in where your menu is going to get displayed. So I happen to be using one of the default themes. I think I'm still using an old 2021 theme. So that in the 2021 theme, it only has two places for you to put a menu. So let me go back to menus again for a second here. In fact, here, if you go to manage locations, in the 2021 theme, it only has a primary and a secondary menu. If I changed my theme, let's go to maybe 2024. Let's try 2024. If I'm using, oh no, it's a full site editor thing. Let's use Cadence instead. I'm staying away from full site editor for now. If I go to Cadence under menus, I go back to manage locations. Now I suddenly have a primary, a secondary, mobile, and footer. So that's Peter always says this too. When we're helping people, their problems, whatever, it really does. Your theme plays a big part in terms of when you're looking at information online, you kind of need to match that up because maybe someone's showing you something. You're like, wait, I don't see that option. It's really because your theme really defines the menu locations. Full site editing, hold that thought because it gives you more control over places where you can put menus. But in general, a regular old theme, plain vanilla theme, the theme just defines where you can put your menus. So let me flip back. Sorry. So again, going back to 2021, I'm just keeping the 2021 theme because it's a fairly simple theme. So at this point, like I said, all I've done is I've added two items to my menu, and maybe now's a good time to talk about it. I'll shut up and then Peter, you can jump in with other stuff too. But so I've added like two items to my menu, but I've added custom links. So what you're going to have for different types of things you can add to your menu, we'll go through this probably more detail tonight. You can add pages, posts, you can add custom post types, add custom links, categories from blog posts. So it's not just pages necessarily. Where custom links become interesting is that a custom link, you can put anything into it. In general, let's say a custom link could be a link to, an actual website, or it could just be a placeholder for something. So if you look at what I did here for About Us right now isn't linking to anything. So let me save this and show this to you on the front end. About Us, I just have a hashtag in there because you need a value in there. So if you look at, it's on the bottom. I've moved mine around underneath. Where did my menu go to? Hold on, let me flip back to another theme.
You
Sorry.
didn't choose primary menu. So that's
Oh, thank you. I thought I saved. Thank you, Seema. Let's see that again. Okay. And let me refresh it. There we go. There's my menu. So you can see this one, because it has, if you look at it underneath, you probably can't see, but underneath my, when I hover my mouse, I can see it's going to my website / hashtag, and this is going to hashtag, and this one's going to Google. So a custom link can serve multiple purposes. It can just be a placeholder like this. But let's say you want to organize your pages. Let's say underneath About Us, I want to put news in the cat archive. So I already have some existing pages. Let's say I want to put these underneath the About Us page. But let's say I don't want, because if I do this, let me just save this the way it is right now. If I do this, somebody can still click on the About Us. It shows up as a clickable item, but it really doesn't go anywhere. It's just kind of a placeholder. What you can do is after you've saved it once, you can delete the URL. And now if I resave it, it's kind of a quirk of WordPress. Now that's not really something that shows up as clickable anymore. I have to go to the pages underneath it. So think of it, that's kind of a way to set up a hierarchy in your menus without having, kind of a false URL in there. So I'll shut up there for a second. So that's kind of custom links. Everything else underneath it, and Peter, I'll keep rambling on until.
Yeah, no, please.
So other things, again, because this is all just kind of basic stuff. Other things, what else can you add to menu? I've already shown you can add pages. You can add specific blog posts too. Maybe there's one that gets a lot of traction, or maybe, however you're using blog posts, maybe you want to have one in your menu. Again, one thing to consider too is that by default, it'll show you most recent, but let's say you have a ton of blog posts. You may have to go in here and find them, or even pages too. If you have a lot of pages in a site, you may not see them all immediately. You may have to go into view all. You may have to search even, it'll search, I think, by page title to find it. So let me add one just to show. So let's say I'm going to add one of these guys, the Hello World. So I can add that to my menu. I can also add custom post types. Like I said, this one has some goofy thing that we probably demoed in the past. So this is a custom post type of Snoopy. So it's a dog. And then let's say I want to put categories. So all of my posts that are of category news, I can add those in here too. So now I save my menu. It's going to be a little bit goofy. It's going to have all these different things in it. But if you look at, this one's going to go to a blog post. This one's going to be a custom post type. And this one is, I think, the category. So it's going to show me an archive page for all of the news. So a lot of different things you can put in here. Other things I've put in the past, if you have like an events plugin, events calendar plugin, you can put that. It'll usually tell you what page you want that to go to. So you can put that in there. So it goes directly to that calendar. WooCommerce, shop things, et cetera, et cetera. Those are other things you can add into your menu itself. So this is the basic page for adding items into a menu. Just a couple other quick things on this page. So other things you can do here, I already showed the manage locations piece. And I already messed up you can see the display location. So depending on your theme, a menu can appear in multiple places. Let me switch real quick, maybe to Cadence is its own beast. I don't want to touch Cadence yet, but just maybe we'll get back to that one after. But you can have a menu show up in the footer, because maybe there is a menu that you want to create. And again, I wouldn't say necessarily the same menu. In fact, you probably want to create a new menu. So let's say this is going to be my footer menu. And I'm just going to say secondary for now. So your footer menu may have other things. Let's say you have your privacy policy page, contact us, other things like that. Maybe you don't want them taking up space. excuse me, you don't want those taking up space in the header, but they are important things. So, maybe a footer is a better place for that kind of stuff. So that may be a smaller menu than what you would have in a header. Or some people used to put like sitemaps and things like that inside the footer. One last thing about, let me go back to this will throw you too. If you want to switch between, it always throws me. Maybe, make sure you're editing the right menu. So unfortunately you switch, you still have to click the select button next to bring it up in context. And if you go under screen options as well, there are advanced properties for menus that are probably worth taking a quick look at. So there's link target, title, CSS. I'll skip these other two. I don't think the other two really do that much. So when you select these, suddenly you're going to see new things show up underneath your menu. So let's look at like the contact us, for example, or let's look at the Google one. That's a good example. So in this case, let's say I want to, by default, so here's the way this page looks right now. By default, when I click the Google link, it's going to open up inside of this tab. So basically jumped me away from my site. Let's say I don't want that. I want it to open up that link in a new tab. Because I've selected that additional property there, now if I refresh this page, I click on Google, it'll open up in a new tab. So that's one of those custom attributes. The other attributes in here, let's look at contact us. So contact us, you can add a CSS class in here. So let's say, for example, what did I call it? I have one in here. Give me 1 second. So let's say you want to do custom styling just for one of your menu items. So let's say I want to make one of my menus into a button. I want to make it into a call to action button. So what I can do here is I can add the class in here and save this. And as you see, you obviously need some corresponding CSS. So what this is going to do is for that item, it knows it's a link. It's going to add a border and padding and all that kind of stuff. So now if I look at that menu item, that was a contact us, it's turned it into a button. So that's again, if you want to target things with CSS, you have to turn on the attribute. And then the last thing I'll show in here is title attribute. I don't know how well this works for accessibility. I don't know if you know, Peter, or not, but this is like a tool hover tip. So
yep.
So you can type something in there in the title. I think it's a title attribute. And now if I refresh my page, if I hover over Hello World, it should say, there we go. This is the Hello World link. Again, from an accessibility standpoint, is that a no-no? I'm not sure. If you have a need for it, it's just a simple thing you can do through these custom attributes. So I'll stop for a second there. So this is kind of the basics of adding menu items. Any questions pop up about just basically adding menus? There's more stuff we can talk about later about. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah. Could you could you explain the difference between primary and secondary menus, and can you have more than one of each type?
You can, and again, it depends on your theme. So in this case, let me show. And again, the name I just named it that. But yeah, in this case, the secondary menu for this theme says it's. I believe it will display it in the footer. I could be wrong, but let me try that. So if I go back to my footer menu, again, I'm using the 2021 theme, I believe. So this, I need to add an item to it. Let me add just 2 pages to this thing.
So it's dependent on the theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important to know that how much is dependent on a theme. Eagle also makes a point too, is, we're talking about classic themes or not block themes, not full site editing themes. There are ways to kind of cross those. You can actually create with a plugin something for full site editing. But yeah, I'll have one theme that'll have 6 different spot locations. Another theme has just header and footer, depending on what they have built into the theme. So the smaller number of modern but classic themes that we use might have more options for that. One thing I wasn't sure, I was thinking about this today Ray, I don't know if you know, is if there was even a plugin there's always a way with code and like a snippet, but for creating a new location that you might want to place. And I'll give you a specific example. I was using a menu within the body of a page. And the tool that I was using, it was saying, oh, okay, which location are you? It didn't give me a choice of selecting the menu. It gave me a choice of only selecting, is it primary? Is it footer? Is it kind of thing? So then I was like, can I create my own custom locations outside of the theme?
I think you
Obviously, we
can.
but
Yeah, I would think there's probably different ways you can do that now. Meaning, yeah, so I worked on a project where they wanted a menu in the sidebar on certain pages. So that was another sidebar menu. But I think we got around that because we used a plugin, and then the plugin just had a short code for that. So that's where things get a little bit confusing. That sometimes if it goes beyond what your theme provides, that's where plugins and other things expand that for you.
Yeah, sidebars and stuff, you can always use a widget and throw in a menu. But you can also use like Astra, Generate Press, and I believe Cadence too. You can create they call it different things. Generate Press calls it elements. You can create webhooks and put a menu pretty much anywhere that has a hook available. After content, before content, after header, before footer,
with the
sidebar.
Sometimes it's with the pro version, like the Cadence. I think it's only the pro version that lets you do.
Well, yeah. Well, Cadence, Generate Blocks, they are all pro versions, but you come on, folks. If you're going to develop a website and you have a business, the $59 a year for the pro version is a necessity because the features that you get, Astra, Generate Press, Cadence, they're teasers to get you to buy into the subscription, and it's worth it no matter which one you go with. Those three, they are powerhouses, and you'd be silly to throw away that power. Just I'm sorry, my opinions are jumping in here real fast.
But yeah, so you're right. So that's one thing. If you feel limited by your theme in terms of, hey, it only offers, like this guy only offers, 2 display locations. Well, that's a time to either look at a different theme that gives you more. Again, could be a tall order because maybe that, has some other ramifications. Or the other thing, I think within plugins, which we'll talk about a few plugins probably in a second, you can do other things with it. Just couple quick things. Peter, I don't know if you're going to touch upon these too, but just in terms of menu item management, maybe because I just have this on top of mind. There's a couple of things you can do here of managing your menus. So let's say, for example, the simple one, I think I already showed it here is, let's say you put together a menu. Actually, let me go back to the primary one for a second, because this will illustrate the other thing. So we talked about, maybe I jumped over it if everyone's new. If you want to nest things within each other, you just right now you can drag them. There's other ways to do it too. I think you do move or something. I'm just carrying it with my mouse, moving it. Let's say I want this to be underneath this item. Well, I can move that, and I can continue moving it. I can, you want to be careful at a certain point. This goes back to usability. So now what have I created? Well, now I've created this kind of a mess where it's like, okay, it's this one, it's this, under this, under this. That looks okay, but there's certain themes that will display this as some weird, don't go too deep. Don't go too deep in your layers, just like the other one. I'm trying to think what other little things here. In bulk select, obviously you want to delete things or change things here. Sometimes I've worked on sites that are quite large where after a while, moving things around gets to be a pain in the neck. I wonder if I could do it in this one. I don't want to do. Well, I guess maybe I could. Just for kicks, and I'll delete this thing. But now it gets a little confusing. If I want to move this guy up there, you have to drag it. So I do think this whole UI, we talked earlier about things that WordPress.org should be focusing more on. And this has been like this for how long? A decade or so. So this is kind of still a bit of a clunky experience. And even to do basic things, like for example, let's say I want to copy, boy, I did all this work. I created my primary menu. I want another menu, a duplicate of this. You think that'd be baked into WordPress itself? Nope. There are plugins. The one I tend to use is the aptly named duplicate menu. You know, if you turn that on, now if I go back to menus, I can just say, hey, I want to duplicate my primary menu and call it primary
Yeah.
menu to duplicate it. And now if I go back to my my menus, I've got primary and I got primary two. Yeah, something you think would like be built into WordPress. So, you know, don't despair. There's probably, if you have a problem with a menus, there's probably a plugin that lets you organize this better. Are there any other handy ones people think of in terms of just organizing menu items? I think other things I've had to do besides the nesting and all that.
No, yeah. What you've done, it's interesting today. I found like, oh, I can actually pick from a drop down the menu order as opposed to dragging and
Oh,
dropping. And
that's underneath here. Yeah, so if I want to move them around, if you're a sub order, let's say I want to make this guy the third.
Yeah,
If you have a big list, that could be handy. Yeah, you can move them around through this.
and it's also more of an accessibility tool too, because
I
it's
don't remember, you know, again, this
less
is,
mouse dragging and dropping and more selecting. But
I don't think you can, I'm just trying this out. I'm pretty sure I knew the answer. You can't multi-select items here. You can do bulk select, but you can't just like, oh, I guess you can as a bulk select, sorry.
you can grab the top level of something, and then everything underneath will go with it.
That's true. Yeah.
But you can't, like, I don't think you can grab three under something and move them elsewhere.
Yeah. So this, again, if I do bulk select, now I can take these three guys. Oh no, I guess you can't. I thought I could move them all together. Why would you? That would only make too much sense. So you still have to move them all individually. So there are quirks to the items thing. Again, for the most part, people probably aren't working. Well, I should say that you could be working quite a bit in here. I found, again, for bigger sites, again, there's a really large site I work on that has hundreds of blog posts. The thing that always throws me, I've noticed even too, sometimes loading this, I click on the view all because their hosting isn't great. That'll take a while for that thing to load. And they're not necessarily ordered in what you would think. Like, I don't know, the most recent aren't always the most recent. So I have to always search for them, you know, and that, I don't know. So that's one of my other just gripes about this whole UI. I don't use this too often. No one else ever does this. This is the manage with live preview. This is another way to work on your menu. This just saves you the ability you can see it at the same time that you're messing around with it. I don't know. I never really use this. So if I remove it, so this is the cat archive, it should, yeah, it got removed from there. Or if I remove, what's the Snoopy one here? Let's do that. If I remove it.
Yeah, they're basically just putting it in the customizer so you can see it.
Yeah.
You know, again, more on the classic theme.
Yeah.
Although what gets interesting is there are certain plugins and certain tools that you can use to manage menus with while in a block theme, full site editing theme. And then now you will see menus under appearance and even have a level of a customizer. So it's kind of interesting when you open up certain things on the block theme to like appearance menus, and now you could be using the customizer, because I have a plugin that I use that gives me the option of putting like a menu up in the admin bar, right?
Yeah.
So that maybe I want to just select things that are like the top pages that I go to in the admin bar, give it to a customer so they can just, so that would be a menu specific to just the admin using this plugin. It does it. But even if I'm using I experimented on a block theme, and having that plugin then activates the classic menu within a customizer that it puts under appearance under a block theme. I'm telling you, the block theme versus classic theme does get confusing. You're in two different worlds.
Do you want to show, like, I'll stop sharing for a minute. Do you want to show like cadence or something, Peter? Maybe just show slightly different, or something else in terms of the adding.
Well, I'll show. We're flipping the script here because I try to stay away from block themes, but I'm going to go into block themes. Eagle has a question or a statement.
Question: when you throw that plug-in into the block theme and you get the customizer, and you build a menu in that customizer, where does that put that menu?
Where does it put it? It makes it available for anything that uses a menu. Where does it put it? Uh,
It makes it available in the site editor under what? Because the navigator block is basically just a list of pages.
Right. So it was specific to the plugin was using a classic menu, even though you were putting it on a full site. So it was available um to the plugin, that classic menu. But what's interesting is there is another plugin that I can share that allows you to use classic menus as the menu for the navigation block that you would use in a full site editing thing. And
So it's adding plugins to the theme editor, or not plugins, but blocks.
yeah. So what? Let me try to show you. I'll because I'm hopping into that area right now.
So I think a lot of what we're probably going to show for the rest of this is more, what I've shown is just really the basics that are built
You got the basics in, yeah.
into WordPress core. Where things get more interesting is when you want to go beyond the basics. Then I think then you're kind of forced to either look for the theme that supports it out of the box, like maybe like we'll show a little bit of cadence stuff, or you're going to have to find a plugin to do what you need to do. So
Yeah. So this is real quick. This is a site that I work on that has a lot of custom post types, and you will get other menu choices in because of certain plugins, WooCommerce, events, calendars, all kinds of things like that. So the list of what you can pick from is very dependent on what you have active on your site, which you covered, Ray, but this was a site that I had up here. Now, this is a full site, and I'm just playing with some things. Let me go to here, and let me go to, and I'm going to add the one we were just talking about, so we could just take a look. So,
you misspelled classic.
oh, add new. Sorry.
Yep. And you misspelled classic. So what theme is this on the site, Peter?
So right now I have Ollie active.
Okay. Ollie's the full site editor theme.
Yeah. So I'm in the block theme. Somehow I have a mosquito in my face. Came out of the wood from the wood pile. So when I activate the classic menu and navigation block, now under appearance and menu, I now have a way of building a menu, a classic menu. The first, and this, all the things that throw you, right? So you do have to
create a menu first, right?
What do I do first? I forget.
You create a menu first.
Yeah, you got to create your menu. Create your first menu below.
Give it a name.
Yeah, you gotta give it a name.
That's it.
Yeah.
See? Yeah, exactly. So I'll just call it main menu.
I swear we've been doing this for 10 years.
I know, exactly. And so now I can do the things.
Yeah.
There's the menu navigation. There's always these little things, and it's easy.
This is a plugin attempt to recreate the menu structure, but it's a little different.
Yeah, I mean it works exactly the same. So if I put all these things in and add to the menu, I can drag and drop them. So it's basically, giving me the links. So now I can save this menu, and this is the example I was talking about, location. So I have to, what's really weird about it is I can't use it, I don't think, by naming it as main menu. I have to put it in a location, and I'll show you why. Then if I go to a page, sorry for this looking kind of weird, I'll put so now if I add, and so we're now in a block theme, and I'm adding the navigation block, and it's defaulting to the active one that I have here. But now that I've got this plugin active, I can go, and I should have, where is it? Not mobile menu. No, making a lot. Oh, wait, is it here? No. Under settings is where I should see a classic menu choice. I'm not.
Is
I
it,
think I
do you
have to.
need to
I think I
refresh?
have
Do
to
you need to
disconnect that.
refresh the page?
Yeah, I think I have to disconnect this and refresh the page.
Yeah,
Right?
because I think you added it while this page is still active.
I did. You're right. And the whole block theme, multiple. Are you sure you want to save all the different things that you're saying? That throws me too every time. All right. So now classic menu, navigation block. I don't have anything. If I go under settings here, I should see classic menus now, an option here. And now I can say, okay, go. I put this one in tertiary. Now it'll tell you, for whatever reason, you don't see it on the back end. But if I go to the front end, that was that menu that I created. And I've added I put it in the tertiary location. What I wish this allowed me to do is pick the actual, just the menu straight and not have it worry about the location, selecting it that way. But what that does is, if you just make your main menu that way, it removes the requirement for the navigation block to do everything in that world, and you can still do it using what Ray you just spent a lot of time doing.
Yeah,
which I kind of like.
That is nice. So while you have it up, again, we won't spend, unless someone wants us to, we don't have to spend a lot of time on the full site editing experience, but just to kind of show the difference. If you looked at, like, Peter, if you want to select one of those blocks, so this is the navigation menu block. So so this is, it's kind of weird. This is a block that you can either work on here, because it is a block, or in the full site editor experience, you could also create your menus there, and it's this drag and drop thing. I'm still not completely comfortable with it. Just I've been using the old ones so much that I still find this experience clunky. You think it'd be better because it's a drag and drop thing, but for me, whatever reason, it always seems like it doesn't work out as well for me. And
I'll tell you, that's why I think this particular plugin, although it doesn't work great on this, once you put it there, now I can just go back to the classic way of doing things and do all of the adding and dragging and dropping, and it just brings that into this spot. The other thing, as we're looking at the time, that I thought would be interesting to show is where WordPress is going. Right, so WordPress 7.0 is coming out April, and one of the things that they're working on is the mobile menu overlay way of doing things, so that when you basically how you get the hamburger menu. So, for example, if I go to take this, let me inspect it and go to the mobile menu. That idea of how the hamburger menu works, right? So the tool that I'm playing with now, which is they're trying to take some of that, many have said roll it into WordPress, is I'll show you the plugin, is the Ali Menu Designer plugin. Now, again, this is for block theme, the navigation block that comes out of core. This enhances that, and what it does is it gives you the ability to, like I'm playing with it here, under settings, under Ali, you can set what mobile menu you want to show, right? So here's a pattern, right? So the Ali theme comes with some patterns, so you can basically build anything you want, right? So it's just a block pattern that gets assigned to the overlay. So if you wanted to have something fancy for your mobile menu, and it also does kind of the other thing, and playing with this one, is that it gives you the opportunity to that has both a mobile menu, and then in this particular block you can choose not only a menu item block. So if I'm in a menu, I can add a another menu item, home, contact. I can, I could put a block in there. All right. So now I mean, just to your end too long. I don't want to do that, but I'm going to delete that. But you can also add, with this plugin active, a drop down menu item. And when you do that, now you can create a drop down menu, a whole nother pattern. And in this case, for example, this is your mega menu now in full site editing or in the block theme using this particular plugin. This is just a pattern that you could attach to this drop down. So if I save this now and go look at it, so pardon the confusion too, but that drop down now, if I mouse over it, I'm seeing that mega menu. Now imagine this at the top of your page is a mega menu. So this is where there's a lot of attention now being paid to this Ollie plugin that it's in addition to the Ollie. So Ollie has an Ollie theme, a lot of stuff in the Ollie theme Pro. So there's that whole premium, the Ollie theme versus the Pro version. It's a teaser kind of thing. But the menu builder that gives you both control over your mobile menu and being able to add drop down mega menus is a free in the repository. I'll put the link in. But that's
so where do you, Peter? So for that, like for the drop down one, for example, where do you actually edit that pattern? Is it just in the regular patterns, or
yeah, it is. So if I'm over here,
what they call a
and I
template?
want to go to the drop down and
edit template.
Yeah, it opens it up. Now it is a template
part. It's a template part in the site editor. Okay.
Yeah. So
can you do the can you show the list view? So this is just made up of the little 3 lines. So what is this? This is just made up of different blocks. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Exactly. So like this would be a pattern that comes with the Ollie theme that you could then go in and obviously edit this as however you would want, and that would change your whole mega menu. And you can make multiple ones obviously and attach them to different ones of your drop downs that you showed. But this is kind of, this does start opening up full site editing into okay, I'm starting to see some of the things that I'm used to being able to use, because there are definitely, you could build a mega menu in Cadence by making an element that is attached to a menu that then pops up. There are, I think you had a link. There's a plugin. The Max.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, this one here, the mega menu one.
Or Max mega menu. Yeah, that's the one I've used before, where it's a little clunky, but it does kind of what you showed. So that's probably the one that people are probably most likely to encounter in the wild, because it's been around for a long time. The free version is pretty decent. I mean, again, we don't have to really show it unless people are interested, but it's similar to what Peter showed of basically being able to have multiple columns. You can also add things in it too, like you can add icons, you can add other stuff. I think you had buttons maybe in it too. I forget. So but it was all pre full site editing. So that's why it's a little, you have to learn it. There's a bit of a learning curve too when I've used it before.
Yeah, right now I think that if you're using a block theme, then this Ollie, what is it called? Ollie Menu Designer is probably the way to go. It's getting the most attention. Again, people keep saying, "Oh, this should be part of core," and the developer is very visible, so we know who he is and what he's doing. So that is a nice option for it. I'm looking at the clock and I'm just wondering if one of the other areas that we're talking about, and I will show the cadence thing really quickly, but associated with the mega sticky and then bottom menu is something that I've used too. I created my own in Cadence, making an element that I stick to the bottom, and I only show on mobile sites. So for example, I had a site where basically the website, on a mobile device, you had the buttons that you're kind of used to being at the bottom of your screen on apps, but it's basically a menu of icons that's stuck to the bottom, like with a telephone. Hey, call us, search, kind of icon, stick that. A lot of menus, right? You'll have, go to, being able to stick the menu to the top. So this menu is in an element that now is I can stick it, kind of thing. So that's another way of tying things in.
Which
Let me
kind of
show.
crosses into that header piece we talked about.
Yeah,
It's the header that's kind of sticky or you tend to see, but yeah, it's maybe the menu element that's really
exactly. And let me quickly show you the accessibility point, which is without using the mouse, you need to be able to navigate your site using the keyboard, the tab key. And as you can see, it'll highlight, you have the focus. And then if you have a drop down, you need to be able to then go through that or escape out of it. The Cadence theme, again, we Cadence, Astra, Generate Press, the three that are the only ones quite honestly, I think you need to concern yourself with on a classic theme. They have paid a lot of attention to accessibility. The actually I did have very, I just called it that. On the block theme, the navigation block that's used in headers and all, by default is they paid attention to accessibility. If I had the drop downs, I've seen it works. That's one of the advantages actually of going with that navigation block. And then the other thing we're talking about would be under Cadence. There's a couple of things. One is instead of using the navigation block, they have the navigation advanced block.
All right. Yeah.
So under navigation advanced, then, and it's a good thing I made a menu because it's looking for, you can also make a menu, and Cadence now has its own menu management system. It's kind of, right now it's just basing it on, and this is it. So now this is the Cadence.
Did this show up, Peter, because you installed a plugin from Cadence?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. This is the Cadence block plugin.
All right.
That's active. If I add these to the Cadence now, we'll give this is just, I'll just call it Cadence. So now this is what I just created. Now this is the Cadence navigation block that you can use in the header of a full site editing theme. If you have the Cadence blocks page builder toolkit for Gutenberg editor, it's called, in a block theme, you then get this more advanced, wherever I was, this more advanced navigation block. So it'll work like a navigation block. That looks the same there until you get into what it gives you is under the Cadence, you get a whole lot of grab the right one. Wait a minute. No, I think I just used the regular navigation one there.
No, it said advanced. When you clicked on it, it said
advanced?
advanced. Yeah, if you click on it.
Oh, there, I was clicking on an item. That's another thing that happens. Like a block inside is click on an item versus the actual navigation. So under the navigation, you have a whole lot more styling capabilities.
Like it had dividers and stuff. It's kind of funny because this seems to have diverged from what's built into Cadence, right? Into the regular Cadence theme / block.
Yeah, so the Cadence theme, you could say put the primary menu here, and then it has in the customizer like the choices that you can make for.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah. You're right.
But you can also
customizer.
Right, but then you do the full. If you put the full navigation block, you have complete.
Right. So it separates them. Yeah.
Yeah, colors and shadows and all the things we kind of got used to with the Astras and the Cadences and the that type of thing. You can now bring over and use the advanced navigation in a block theme in the header, and style it a lot more. So you kind of go, either you're going with right out core accessibility, it does what it's doing. They're adding the mobile menu thing. Ollie, you have custom mobile overlays, mega menus that you could attach to a drop-down block that they add, or the Cadence one where now you have just kind of a lot more design capabilities over what you can do with that navigation block. What else do you want to?
Well,
Any
that's,
questions on
I
any
mean,
of
that's
it?
all I
Go
really
ahead, Mike.
had. I mean, that's all I really had too. I mean, I had like the Max Mega menu, which you've already kind of shown. I don't think it's, I mean, it basically does a lot of the same things that you showed with that other plugin, and it's probably, the other one's probably easier to work with than Max. I also had the responsive menu plugin, which just,
Yep.
if you had that on your list too, maybe, let me
You
see
want
if
to
I
grab?
have, yeah, let me see if I have it installed. Do I have it installed? Yes, I do. Let me grab the,
As we always say, it just gets so confusing between. We debate sometimes whether we want to even talk about some of the things in a block theme,
here's,
considering how many people. But I know Gene, you use a block theme, I believe, right? You're still using a block theme, and anybody new might be using.
oh, there's responsive menu.
Yeah, I
Okay.
generally use block things. I find it easier, but
Yeah,
I am doing a couple sites in Generate Press, which I'm struggling with because I learned block first.
there you go. Exactly. It all
So,
depends what you use. But so with block theme, take a look at that Ali theme menu designer. It's pretty cool.
so this
Yeah,
one's
I really
called,
like that.
Just,
The
yeah,
Ollie's, I think.
Jane, you can come to Alicia's meetup on Wednesday nights, or you can come to Santa Cruz, San Jose, and we'll help you with Generate Blocks or Generate Press. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, at least you start at a decent hour and I can stay awake. Alicia starts so late for the East Coast that
uh,
I'm like, oh my God, sometimes I have to stand up or fall asleep. So I will come. Thank you.
Just remind us you're on the East Coast, so we can get to your
Okay.
question.
Okay. Thank you.
this one I'll show real quick. Again, it's called responsive menu, but really it is kind of it's the whole header thing as well as menu. But again, if your theme doesn't have this already built in, I've used this. It's been a while. I remember using this on a site that had its own handwritten theme, but they just wanted something nice for responsive menus because the handwritten theme didn't do that very nicely. So this is just another little handy. There's a bunch of other ones out there. This one's fairly simple to use. So again, I don't think I have a menu created in here, but it gives you some options for slide outs, kind of how you want this thing to look on mobile. So that's the only other like handy menu related plugin I could think of. Like I said, we covered Max Mega Menu, responsive menu, duplicate menu. I mean, I think just sort of maybe to wrap it up and go back to the beginning, always consider there's lots of things, again, with great power comes great responsibility, Spider-Man. There's lots of things you can do with menus, but always consider your visitor. And especially, I think the biggest thing is, or one of the biggest things is making it easy for people to find what they're looking for on your site. So I've seen menus, and again, I think they've improved it a bit, but I've seen menus or headers for really large corporations. Like Apple used to have some of the worst menus in the world, their home pages too. It was just, you go there and it'd be a hamburger icon, but not even shaped like a hamburger icon. It'd be some wacky thing. So like, don't don't confuse people. Stick with the common things. Look at that one I showed you for like the town in Newington too. Don't overwhelm people. I mean, you can add a search feature as well too if people can't find things through navigation. But again, put yourself in the shoes of the visitor. I think that's the biggest thing, starting that way. And kind of, again, my approach, like I showed in the beginning, is I like to stub out a really simple menu in terms of navigation to begin with, and then fill it in if I'm building a site from scratch. So it helps me kind of understand the structure of a site. I don't build site maps. I used to do that a long time ago. You know, I'm lazy. It's just do it really stubbing something up. But it's a lot easier to do that stuff in the beginning because that also will affect things later on too as you're building pages. you can create parent-child things. So it's better if you know ahead of time, oh, this is going to be a sub page of the About Us page or sub page of whatever. If you thought about that in the very beginning, it's easier than going back and retrofitting things afterwards. So that's it. That's all about menus.
Yeah.
There's lots there. Again, I'd love to hear too for people either, reach out to us afterwards. If there's a plugin or something that you use that's cool for menus, you have a menu related question on your site, bring it to us. And again, any thoughts for next month too, feel free to let us know. Like I said, format wise, I think we're still gonna try to do stuff like this, but then also intersperse other things that we're working on and stuff that hopefully is of interest. And definitely bring your sites and your questions and issues to this as well too. So sorry, I know we ate up a little bit of the beginning time talking about the meetup,
Yeah.
mandates, I guess the WordPress mandates, but it was good to hear everyone's opinions on that too. So all right. That's it. I think
All
we
right.
got for tonight. So thanks everyone. Thanks for joining us again. Have a good rest of your night.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye.